Welcome, guys, to another episode of Podcast is Unbreakable. I am Kidutaku, and what I do on my channel is I review Fairy Tail, Naruto, and Boku no Hero Academia. And I have my friend Jalen Hawk, if he wants to introduce what he does on his channel as well.
Your savior is here. What's up, guys? I'm Jalen Hawk. I review Bleach, Naruto, Tokyo Ghoul, and other shonens and seinen series on my channel. So if you would want to check me out, I would deeply appreciate it.
So today we're going to be talking about the new starters that were released for Pokemon Sun and Moon. Pokemon Sun and Moon was actually announced a little bit earlier this year, and we were waiting on the starters because usually when they first announce a certain game coming out, they usually have the starters out right away, but we had to wait a couple of months for that to be revealed, and that's what brings us to today. So we have our 3 starter Pokemon. First, we're going to be talking about Owlette. He is grass flying. And what I can say about him is that he looks like he has a very unique design. He looks very adorable. I will not lie about that. And I like that whole fashion it has with that tie. I feel like this certain tie that it has on its chest is going to resemble something with its evolution. And what I can say about it as well, knowing how it's also a grass and flying type Pokemon, it's going to be getting wrecked by ice type attacks because grass types normally have a 2x ratio against ice. Same goes to flying types, and you double that, and it's 4x. So this thing, like I said, is going to get wrecked by ice type attacks, along with, of course, rock, poison, and flying, and fire as well.
Yeah, I agree with you with the whole the tie on his chest, the leaf. Because if you look back at all the starter Pokemon, the grass type starters, they've always had some certain plant on their chest or like somewhere on their body that has developed. Like Bulbasaur, the bulb eventually became a tree. Then Chikorita became flowers. Chirico, a tree, like a giant leaf. Same thing with Turtwig, became a tree. Snivy, more leaves, and then Chespin, a whole entire shield. So I can see that becoming like a cape, or even like maybe like a tux, like a vest or something, because it seems like it's like having the whole formal appearance. Just looking at it, but I do agree it's probably gonna have high speed and attack power.
Knowing how flying types usually have a good speed ratio, I can also maybe seeing it have some good special attack too, because a lot of grass types do share that. There's not really
Definitely.
that.
Well, actually, if you look at the back of Owlette, he actually has his tail, like the back of his feathers, is actually a leaf as well. And the attacks, you see him turn his head, and I do see something where he does like throw something that looks like a tie or like seeds or something.
I can definitely see it growing taller. I can definitely see this Pokemon starting to develop wings, but I feel like this, like you mentioned earlier, I feel like this whole tie that it has on its chest is going to create some sort of pattern around its body, and it's going to become a lot useful once it reaches its final evolution.
I agree as well. I can actually imagine it, like height-wise. I can see the character design being somewhat like Noctowl,
Yeah.
and it getting like a grass mask, kind of like the mask that you see like at a masquerade ball.
I think we'll have some type of resemblance to Staraptor.
Yes, definitely. And I would like that because Staraptor is probably one of my more favorite flying types.
It's actually interesting because we never actually got a full-fledged flying type starter to start off with. I mean, of course, we had Charizard. That was its final evolution, but we never actually started off with like a grass flying typing, so I find that really interesting.
I can see actually Popplio having like a pretty high defense stat once it evolves. Kind of like how Walrein does, where it's like it has the ability Thick Fat, and it's basically immune to almost all attacks except like grass and electric.
Now we're going to be moving on the next starter, which is Litten, and it is our fire type starter for this generation. Now what I can say about this Pokemon is that it looks like its final evolution is going to be a fire dark Pokemon. Just by looking on the pattern of its skin, it seems like it's going to be getting some type of attribute like that in the future. And I do know, because I heard a couple of people already talking about the starter already, that this is the favorite out of the trio. I can definitely see this Pokemon having a good stab with physical attack.
Well, looking at its character design right now, I'm thinking more of like the tiger route, only because we already got like a fire lion, and even the one of the legendaries looks like a lion. So I'm thinking a tiger or a panther or something, and just the way how it looks, it kind of reminds me of like a ninja.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking maybe it will keep the speed stat and it might have a really high one. I'm thinking Dark and Fire, kind of like Houndour and Houndoom.
All right, so we're going to be moving on to our final starter, which is Popplio, and a Popplio basically pretty much looks like a circus seal. I'm just gonna point that off the bat because of the ring around its neck. But I can definitely see this Pokemon for its final evolution being a water ice type, and the reason why I say that is because of the ring around its neck. Because I've seen this before with Whirleon and Lapras before, because usually when you have a Pokemon starting out as a normal one typing ratio, and then when it starts developing a more suitable form for itself and it starts changing color, I've seen the exact same concept play out before. We have like a dark blue and a light blue, and then ends up being a ice type later on. I can definitely see that. This could potentially be a walrus too, because walruses are usually around ice a lot too.
Even sea lions are as well, which is classified as a sea lion Pokemon. You know, they live in like in the Arctic areas. So far from everybody else, I've seen this Pokemon gain a lot of bad reviews. I don't know why. I like it. It looks funny. I like the whole circus design it has.
I can definitely see this Pokemon getting bulky though. I can see it
Yeah.
getting a good special defense stat. I can see it getting a decent move pool.
I can also see the character design becoming somewhat of like an elephant seal,
Mhm.
only because elephants are in the circus, and then it is like a seal sea lion type Pokemon, and elephant seals do live in like Arctic like climates as well. This Pokemon could completely throw us off like the last few.
Yeah, because I remember that before. Because I remember like when X and Y was released, a lot of people were doubting Froakie. Do you remember that? Like a lot of
Yeah,
people were looking at Froakie really weird, like saying, "Oh, this Pokemon is shit. This Pokemon isn't gonna have anything." And the fandom was just all focusing on Fennekin. And then after Froakie got its evolution and started looking kick-ass, you're like, "Yeah, we should have said that." And then they just, decided to move towards the whole Greninja fan base. So this could exactly play out because, like the expression says, you can't really judge a book by its cover. So this Pokemon right here could actually be the strongest out of all three of them. We might not, it might be that. We don't know, but it could happen.
yeah. I remember the same thing happened with Oshawott, where Oshawott had like the least favorite design out of most of the starters in general, and people were focusing around Tepig and Snivy. And then once they saw Samurai is like this awesome Shogun samurai like being, everybody just like gravitated towards it, and it obviously had probably some of the best attacks in the game.
So now we're going to be talking about what starters we like out of the three that we've seen. Okay, so here's the thing about me. I was the type of guy who always chose the fire starters. It's just been a thing with me ever since I was little. I went from Charizard to Cyndaquil to Torchic. Actually, in fourth generation, I did go to Piplup. Then fifth generation, I went towards Snivy because I thought snakes were pretty cool. And then, obviously, the sixth generation, I went towards Greninja. But to top it off, I've always been a fan of fire types. But I kind of want to change things around a little bit and actually try something new. So I'm going to say I'm going to have to go with Owlet because I just want to, get used to the whole grass type experience once again because it gets the game a lot funner if you actually have a difficult challenge because usually a lot of people choose like the water or fire types because it's a lot easier to get further into the game. And then you have grass types because grass types normally have a lot of weaknesses. It gets a lot harder to get through the game because the Pokemon ends up getting wrecked every single time. But
Yep.
knowing how it has a grass and flying type ratio, and it could be learning a decent move pool in the future, I'm gonna have to go with it. This also gives me the opportunity to have a grass flying type Pokemon, so I don't have to like go out in the wild and catch some flying type to teach it the HM move fly. I just have this one. I'm just really interested to see where this thing is gonna go.
Honestly, I just looking at all the designs, I can't choose. Like character design wise, I like Rowlet the most. Um, Litlin, I like that one too. And Popplio just looks funny, and I can tell Popplio is gonna like if your rival gets that Pokemon, it's gonna be a pain in the ass to beat. Like I don't know which one I'd choose. When you were a kid, did you have like that water type that you would just throw all the water HMs for? Because you know there's typically like three in the freaking game. Like you'll just teach it like surf, whirlpool, and like waterfall or something.
See, that was the thing about me, because usually the way I usually play the Pokemon game is usually I have my 6 main Pokemon that add into my team, and then I have that one Pokemon that I keep to the side. Do I like basically use it as a HM slave?
Yeah.
And then I end up putting it into the PC and never touching again once I get my whole team established. But of course, whenever I need it, and if I want to swap out one of my Pokemon to transfer it into my party, then that's when I use that Pokemon if I want to get to a certain area, if I'm trying to catch a certain Pokemon or a certain legendary.
Agreed. I'm thinking probably Litlin, only because of the fact that Pokemon games that haven't really had that many like fire type Pokemon that you can catch in the wild, they're that powerful
Mm-hmm.
compared to the starters. So I might just go with that. Either that or Rowlet.
Also, about the trailer was basically showcasing that this region is going to be taking place in the Aloha region, which is basically means it's going to be based in Hawaii, which I actually find pretty interesting.
So I hope that the custom feature is still available. I know hair wise it looks like it is, but I mean like skin tone as well.
They actually look like they put a little bit more thought into the character designs in this game, and I have a feeling that they're probably going to get a little bit more in depth with that because in X and Y, we were still getting used to that whole scenario where they first introduced it. So basically, that was probably like a little demo. Knowing how they're getting onto the 7th region in this game, they're probably going to have a lot more options for this because I do know and X and Y, you were able to create your own skin. What I'm hoping you can get like a little bit more in depth with that. Like maybe you can actually, have a full view of your body and not just go buy clothes or something like that. Like maybe you can like change like your age. Maybe you can actually like change your eye style or your nose style.
Like Sims?
And also maybe you can like change your height or your voice or whatever.
That'd be amazing.
But overall I really like the way the game looks. It looks similar to X and Y with slightly more improvements to the 3D.
Even the characters, like if you look at them, they look a bit more defined. Like they look a bit taller compared to the X and like they don't like in X and Y they looked almost somewhat chibi. These they look a little bit more realistic than before, and I like that.
As it was showing that guy running on the street, it actually looked like you had a full-fledged body.
Definitely. And it looks like that we're finally going back to a single rival again. I didn't like the whole multiple rival thing, only because they didn't really feel like rivals, you know? Like they weren't intimidating like how Gary and Silver were like in the past. They're kind of like, oh yeah, I'm your friend. But I've known you since we were like 5 or some crap like that.
We're going to be talking about the 2 legendaries that were introduced towards the end of the trailer for the box art for Pokemon Sun and Moon.
Well, I'm looking at it right now. The 2 covers of Sun and Moon. I already got like a decent look at the Sun mascot, but I didn't really look at the Moon one till right now.
Talk about the Sun one first. Like what we think its typing is going to be.
I'm thinking obviously probably Fire and maybe Fairy. Say if they introduce like the Light type, which would counteract the Dark type. I guess it would probably be like Fire and Light or some crap like that, but who knows.
As for the other one, I actually had a good prediction since you just mentioned light. What about if it was a? Doesn't that thing look like a wyvern?
Yeah, it looks like a wyvern or like a vampire, either one.
You know what I was thinking? Maybe it's dark sound type. Since it resembles a wyvern, wyverns are known for screeches.
That's true.
So that's why I'm thinking it might be, a ghost sound or a dark sound, or it just could be like a darker ghost fairy. But if they introduce two new typings separate between the two, that would actually be pretty cool. Yeah, like I feel like maybe if they decide to go down that right, it would just be a certain typing special to them and them only.
Yep. Also, what do you think the lore is going to be? Because you know how each Pokemon is like they're surrounded with this whole Dialga and Palkia space and time, and then you had Yetiville and Externius who were life and death.
For some reason, I can see Apocalypse since it's evolving the sun and moon, and those two things play a good part in our world because the sun gives us light and the moon gives us darkness.
Yep.
One thing that's kind of obvious that we can point out is the final battle between both these legendaries are going to take part on the sun or moon or something like that.
I would love to see that. I wouldn't even mind if it's like those end up becoming permanent maps and you can catch certain Pokemon. What mega evolution would you see from like reoccurring Pokemon?
It all depends on what route they're going on. But if they're going to choose a certain starters to give evolutions to, and since they made a remake of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, I would say make an evolution, make a Mega Evolution for Cyndaquil, Chikorita, and Totodile. Because that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I could definitely see maybe a rock type evolution because evolutions are common in new generation games.
I wouldn't mind seeing Honchkrow get a mega evolution. The starters from like old generations, like you were saying, like Typhlosion, Feraligatr, Magnanium, especially Magnanium because I feel like it's one of the more underrated Pokemon because most people don't choose Chikorita when they start off in the Johto region. I hope they introduce a lot of new Pokemon in this region, unlike the Kalos region did, where they introduced more. They introduced, I believe, 40 Mega Evolutions, if I'm not mistaken,
Mm-hmm.
and they introduced like 60 new Pokemon, and that's including their evolutionary line. So I hope they introduce a lot of new ones, and don't have too many from other games because after that it gets kind of stale. Which, by the way, it's released November 18th, 2016.
Remember how I told you a couple minutes ago about how I believe there's going to be a Pokemon tie in the middle between the sun and the moon?
Yeah,
That
Earth.
Pokemon's. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, Pokemon Earth. That I honestly wouldn't mind seeing that.
So any of you guys watching right now, if you guys have any other thoughts about Pokemon Sun or Moon, like what do you want to see for Mega Evolutions in this series? Do you guys actually have a theory on what the third Pokemon tie-in between the Sun and Moon Legendary would look like, or what part would they play in the storyline? And also, we want to know what is your favorite starter so far, and which one would you choose to start off on your journey? Just be sure to let us know in the comments section down below. This has been another podcast's Unbreakable episode. So I thank all of you guys for watching. And if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like and smash that subscribe button.
Subscribe to Jalen Hawk and Kid Otaku for more videos, future videos.
And we will see you guys next time. So thanks for watching.